Well, Darth Vader, in the form of his alter ego, Dave Prowse, is on Earth just for a while, right here in Australia. He's with our Live Hour unit in Melbourne, but let's memory of that very...
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans?
We intercepted the transmission. This is a consular ship. We're on a diplomatic mission.
If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador? Not until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
Kelly. Well, for the unmasking of Darth Vader, for the first time ever on Australian television, we present to you the real Darth Vader. Good morning, Dave Prowse.
Good morning.
How are you? Certainly don't look as fearful as your character.
No, I'm not. This is what acting's all about, isn't it?
You've got a very different accent as well.
Well, it's a West Country accent. I'm actually from a place called Bristol in the West Country of England. And as you probably know, the voice of Darth Vader was done by James Earl Jones. It was about 18 months after the first film was made that I had breakfast in California with Gary Kurtz, one of the producers, and I said, "Tell me, why didn't you use my voice?" And they said, "Sorry, Dave, we just could not play Darth Vader with an English accent."
Them's the breaks, Dave.
You sound a bit like a pirate coming aboard the station.
Arr, my dear, arr.
All right, where's Princess Leia then? Arr, come here.
I know.
Dave, all the advantages of playing one of the most famous characters in movie history,
right.
but none of the disadvantages. You obviously have never been mobbed in the supermarket.
No, I don't get mobbed anywhere, actually. I say I don't get mobbed. I do get sort of mobbed when I travel around England, because in England I'm also the figurehead of the government's road safety campaign for children. So children, from miles around know me. But as far as traveling Australia is concerned, no, I can walk around Australia with complete anonymity, and likewise in America too.
What about your other characters? You've had some very interesting parts in movies.
Yeah. You see, I used to be the British heavyweight weightlifting champion. In fact, the last time I was in Australia was in 1962 for the Empire and Commonwealth Games in Perth. And I had a marvellous time. 5 weeks in Perth was absolutely beautiful. And after, when I turned professional, I went into the show business, and one of the things I did, I became the Hammer Frankenstein. And I did all the Frankenstein movies, playing all these terrible monsters and creatures and things like this. Do you know, I don't think I've ever done a film where I've ended up alive. I'm always killed off. I'm always the villain. I'm always put in to make the hero look good. I've been beaten up by every major film character that you can think of, including Roger Moore. And,
Your therapist must really have a ball with you.
I don't mind. Keeps the money coming in.
Can I ask you, why was it that you got the role, assuming that most of the time you spend in a cloak and mask? What were they looking for in a character?
Well, they wanted this, what I call physical presence. And George Lucas rang me up and asked me if I would go and see him. And he'd actually seen a film I'd done previously called Clockwork Orange. I don't know whether you remember Clockwork Orange. Well, I played the part of Julian in Clockwork Orange, and there was a famous scene in it where I carried the writer, who was Patrick McGee, down the stairs in his wheelchair. And he was looking for a very strong character for the part of Darth Vader. And in fact, I got offered Chewbacca first. And
Chewie.
Chewie, that's right. And I turned Chewie down. I thought myself, no, I don't fancy 3 months in a gorilla skin. And so that was the end of Chewie. And then he said, how would you like the part of Darth Vader? And I said, what's Darth Vader? He said, well, that's the big villain of the film. I said, don't say any more, I'll take the villain's part, thank you very much. And he said, well, for why? And I said, well, if you think back on all the movies that you've ever seen, you always remember the villain. You think back on all the Bond movies, you always remember people like Oddjob, and you remember Jaws, and you remember Goldfinger and all these, but you don't necessarily remember who played James Bond. And he said, well, I think you've made a very wise decision, because nobody will ever forget this villain. And here we are, 8 years later, traveling the world, and I'm doing all sorts of other things from it. I've become the figurehead of the government's road safety campaign for children. This is what this little badge is here. I am what they call the Green Cross Code Man. And I also now travel all over the world on behalf of the disabled. I used to be disabled years ago, when I was from the time I was 14 to the time I was 17. And I'm special ambassador. I've been appointed by President Reagan. I'm special ambassador to the International Decade of the Disabled Person, and I travel all over the world giving talks about the problems of the disabled.
That's fabulous. Really.
So it's amazing what Darth Vader can do.
Is that what brings you to Australia this time?
Well, I'm actually here to address a big science fiction convention in Melbourne, which is actually being done on behalf of the Red Cross. It's part of a big science exhibition, but the convention actually takes place here at the hotel over the weekend.
And of course, we see a lot of the other familiar characters milling behind you.
Oh, they're all here. They've all come to see me. It's amazing, isn't it? And there's some marvellous costumes. I mean, really tremendous costumes. I mean, the costumes here are better than the ones in the film.
Yeah.
And who is very closely associated with the Special Olympics, and she asked worldwide, and I said yes, I would very much. And from there I got introduced to a man called Alan Wright, who was president or secretary of the National Organisation of Disability. Then they asked me if I would go over and MC the annual general conference of the President's Committee on Employment of the Handicapped, and so it goes on. It just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And as I said, we're into the international decade, and the decade has about 8 aims as far as the disabled is concerned. I concern myself with 3 of them. One is making the general public more aware of the problems of the disabled person. Number 2, I'm responsible in Great Britain for saving something like 20,000 lives a year through the road safety campaign.
That's great.
We have a tremendous campaign which, I said the road accident figures were running at 43,000 when I came into it, and they're now down to 23,000. So tremendous reduction there. And then I also work very closely with state legislature in America. You know, I'm very pally with people like Governor Wallace and Governor Bob Graham in Florida and Governor Max Cleland in Georgia.
Darth Vader via Dave Prowse. We thank you for your time this morning.
Thank
We're going to have to leave it there, but next time Roger Moore sort of steps in and beats you up, really, if you want to stand in, it's all right.
Great to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you.
Good to reveal yourself to Australia.
Wish you were coming down to Melbourne for the weekend.